Hi, I'm Jim Smith. This is the 1000. This episode I wanted to talk to you about one of the other odd events that happened early in the history of the gun control movement, if you will, in Canada that you should be aware of. And that is the baleful influence of Detroit television on the gun control issue in Canada. I was raised in central Alberta, as I've told you before. We had one TV station for the longest time. It was out of Red Deer, CKRD. It was a CBC station in those days. Later it changed the affiliation. And that's all we had for news. We had no American news. I mean, literally, if I wanted to listen to American news, I had to fire up my transistor radio and go on and get Voice of America on shortwave, which I could do. But there just wasn't much there. But it seems that, and this is one of those things where this may not be causal, they may not be connected, but it almost seems that way, as gun control as an issue started in southern Ontario and in Montreal. These are areas that were serviced by American superstations broadcasting across the border back in the days of rabbit ears and antennas on your roof. And the murder rate, of course, in Detroit's always been pretty brutal. And as these stations were carried further forward when we got into the cable days, it spread. It's an interesting, and it's a sociological fact that you can study any way you want, that gun control is less of an issue the further away you get from the border. So our major cities are close to the border, so it's a big issue. And maybe that's why, just because they're cities. But when you get to someplace like, say, Edmonton, where we're shooting from, gosh, you drive for 3 hours and you're in Calgary. You haven't got anywhere yet. You drive another few hours and you're in northern Montana. I don't know if you've ever been to northern Montana, but there isn't a whole hell of a lot there. We just have no real direct contact with America in the bad sense of the word. Montana's people are pretty much like Albertans. North Dakota people are pretty much like people from Saskatchewan. People are pretty much alike. But when you get into those big superstations and all the murders, the continuous litany on the news of murders and firearms being misused by criminals, almost exclusively in total violation of American gun laws, of which, contrary to what you may hear from the gun control crowd, there are a plethora of gun control laws in the United States of America. And criminals, of course, ignore the law. Gee, what a surprise. Criminals ignore the law. And the TV stations report on them. So the rise of particularly the Detroit superstations and to a lesser degree Spokane, Seattle, the big cities, have certainly caused that issue to be brought forward. And the weird thing is, this is always the last hiding point of scoundrels, I guess. The last point they'll always make. Well, gee, we can't be like the United States where they can buy a gun in every corner, so we should have gun control. I'm a sociologist. You can talk to any sociologist, any anthropologist, any economist, any historian, and they'll tell you Canada and the United States are totally different. Canada and Australia are totally different. Canada and the moon are totally different. This is just the way it is. And to assume that one thing leads to another is extremely simplistic. And that's the point. If somebody runs that by, you know they're usually losing the argument by that point anyway, and they run that by you, I strongly suggest you ask them what that has to do with anything. Our histories are different. Our political systems are different. Our legal system is different. We speak the same language, kind of. Not necessarily. And we have a different background that we deal with. We have our problems, they have theirs. We have our good points, they have theirs. But to assume that a firearm somehow will make us like the United States of America is absolutely ridiculous. And that's as simple as I can put it. Thanks. That's our episode for today. If you liked it, please like it and spread it around that way. Share it with all your friends. And if you can help us out a little bit by supporting us, we'd really appreciate it. This is not a high budget project, but your support really keeps us going. Thanks.